Hi guys, I'm having a conversation with my good friend Rosalind Lee, actress and host from Singapore. Hello.
Ew, I'm not an actress. I don't act. Oh,
Well,
it's the
I
most,
mean, it's
most
like, well,
uncomfortable.
you used to act, so
Never, never. I
like,
did like maybe one or two drama series and I hated it.
really? Okay, so host Roz. Hi,
Yeah.
Roz.
Okay. Hi, Art. You're looking amazing
Thank you, and you
as
do
usual.
too. Well, as you can see, I'm here at a resort, so I'm changing my environment. And you just
Yeah,
got
you're
back from,
dressed.
yes, I am. I'm dressed for the part. So you just got back from your travel documentary with Channel News Asia. I mean, you've been traveling, even prior to pre-pandemic until post-pandemic. How has your perception changed, whether it's for personal travel or work travel, um, from back then to now?
Well, I feel that people are definitely more cautious when they travel. And, I mean, pre-pandemic, everyone's like, yeah, let's party, all systems go, like, let's live recklessly and all that, right? Post-pandemic, I would say we're in the post right now, but I think when we're coming out of the pandemic, this will be around 2022 January, this year, January. Everyone was still obsessed about COVID, Everywhere I go, people are like, okay, what's COVID like in your country? What is it like for
Really?
you? What are your governments doing? Like everyone's like kind of connecting now and just talking about COVID despite being out of COVID. It's
That's
so
so
strange.
strange.
It's like
That's
the
so
unifying factor.
really, that's
Like
really
it's
strange.
yeah, it's like the icebreaker between people from different countries, you
So
know?
so they kind of want to know how you dealt with it in your own country, in your own environment. So then that connects with
Yeah.
them. That's really that's interesting.
I know. It's like I met this couple who were just next to me in a restaurant in Barcelona. I mean, total strangers, right? Like I would never impose on my conversation, myself on people's private dining experience. But they looked at me, I looked at them, I'm Asian, they're like Western, and then we're like, hey, what country are you from? Oh my God, dive straight in. What was COVID like in your country? What were the rules? And it started from there.
So it's become like a conversation, like a topic that and everyone can connect to. But what about your perception
Yeah.
of like, do you have like a newfound sort of appreciation for travel? Because now,
Mm.
because during the pandemic, basically you're in quarantine, you can't get out. I mean, now that you're back and traveling, has your perspective changed in that sorts?
To be honest, like I've always okay, so I quit my radio job in 2017 because I felt like, I was turning 40 and being a radio presenter was like my whole life, like 14 years of it. And I couldn't take more than 2 weeks of leave a year. And that means I couldn't go to like places like South America, Antarctica, North Pole, like do the Trans-Siberian Railway. So I was like, okay, I think it's more important to live my life. Now, this is 2017. And in 2018, I did all that. 2019, travel continued. And then the pandemic happened in 2020, right? And I'm just so glad looking back that I decided to live, like, choose life over like furthering my career. Because during the pandemic, 2020, 2021, I was just looking at all the vlogs that I shot and created on YouTube, and I didn't feel this dying need to travel. Actually, I really enjoyed my COVID years at home because I'm a bit of an introvert. And I felt like, because I spent 2 full years traveling, I could finally be home, do something about my home, like renovate it, like, spruce it up, finally be an adult. And then when COVID sort of like was over and the borders were opening up, I traveled more cautiously in the sense that I'm not going to be, speed traveling. I find myself wanting to travel more deeply, more mindfully, and doing like maybe 3, 4, 5 months at a time. And that's what I did this year. Like I just did 5 months in South America backpacking. There was no agenda. I did not shoot any vlogs. I just wanted to get to know people and live like a local. So I think that's the only thing that's changed. Like kind of I've become a slow traveler. I
So
just want
you
to.
more like an immersed
taken.
traveler, like immersing yourself in the
Yeah,
environments. That's so true because I
yeah.
realize a lot of times when we're traveling, when I'm traveling for work, it's very different when you take yourself out of the work and just be present. When you're
Hmm.
present, you have a whole different experience than actually being there and you're you have to do videos, you have to take photos. But when you're actually
Hmm.
immersed and you understand how people live and you're just connecting with the people and connecting with the environment, it just changes everything.
And honestly, like it's a luxury to allow yourself to be bored. So whenever I go to a new city, like I've never been to which is one country I've never been to, Brazil. So I
Hmm.
spent a month and a half in Brazil this year. I rented an apartment and allowed myself the first 4 days to do nothing. I ordered takein, I was watching Netflix. And on the second day, I was just like, did I travel all the way here to Brazil from Singapore just to watch Netflix in a different apartment? But because I had so much time, I wasn't rushing. I allowed myself to be bored and then naturally allowed that boredom take me out to explore when I feel like it. And that's how I want to travel now.
That's really
Not
that's
have yeah,
that's
and not have to
inspiring.
feel like I need to IG and not feel like I have to IG story everything. Yeah.
I'm
So
laughing because I relate. I totally relate. And I think I try to do that too when I travel. It's like to have days for myself where it's like it's non-work if I'm going for work. And if I'm going there
mhm,
personally, then a lot of times I just don't have that on social media. People don't even know I'm traveling half the time, where they don't know that I'm traveling to places because I don't even post that on my social media.
mhm.
So you've been through a lot of countries, like so many different types of environments that's so different from your home environment. And especially doing,
Mhm.
your travel documentary when you're like in war-torn countries or something that's completely the opposite. How does that affect you mentally?
Mm. So whenever I travel, I'm always, I guess, in search for difference, like a place that could change me so much as a person that I will come back someone totally new, or like I discover a part of myself that I never knew was there. I guess I think there is a whole new other story why I'm searching for that difference. But recently, when I came back from Iraq and Syria, like Syria, for 10 days, I was there backpacking solo. I had a guide. It was a personal trip. Now, that country was on a revenge recovery mode because they have been at war for like as long as we can remember, since 2011, and only in 2022, they're slowly starting to ease out. 10% of the country is still occupied by terrorists. 90% of the country is actually safe. And I had such a great time. But still you see like all these buildings that are destroyed by the war. And it's so in your face, you can't ignore it. But because it's so normal, by the third day, I was kind of desensitized to it. So that's a whole bunch of things to deal with, right? Like a country that's trying to recover, but then all these like broken buildings and displaced people. And then immediately I went to Iraq, and this was for shoot. This is for the CNA China News Asia documentary. Now that country has not been at war for a long time, but there are so many displaced people where I was shooting at. So I was filming in a refugee camp for the Yazidi refugees. And this is a bunch of people like the camp that I was in had 15,000 refugees and displaced people. And they have been in this camp for 8 years with absolutely no hope in sight. Like they don't know where the future is. They don't know where they're going to go if they're able to go back to their home. So to kind of like experience these two countries back to back was very, very, for lack of a better word, mind fucking. And then when I came back to Singapore after like a full, like almost a month of traveling to these two countries, I had to plunge straight back into work, and I had to do things for luxury fashion. I had to do things for makeup brands. I had to host a show. And I just felt like there was a huge disconnect. Like I was trying not to feel guilty about my first world existence and privileges because it's not my fault that bad things happen in the world. I was trying very hard to balance what I've seen on my travels and my life here in Singapore. And I gotta say it's not easy because right now I can tell you for sure I have not processed what I've seen in the refugee camps. Like I feel like if I gave myself time to do it, I will break down.
Mm.
So yeah, so I just need to keep my blinders on and just focus and just know that the work I do is important as well, because it funds what I love to do, which is traveling
I think at some
and
point,
telling stories from these places I've been to. Yeah.
I think at some point in time, you'll need to find that time to process. Um,
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna affect you a lot with what you've
Hmm.
seen. And wow, thank you for sharing that. I think we don't
Yeah.
realize a lot of times when we're like in the first world, like all the privileges that we have around us. And yeah. So let's segue to
Mm.
something lighter. Um,
Okay.
yourself and myself will always be known
Hmm.
as that DJ or that VJ,
That
that
VJ.
VJ or that DJ. Um, what's the pros and cons of that for you?
Actually, what's the pros and cons of that for you? Because
Oh,
I kind of know because like I think you're way more visible, right? You're like on TV. You're not just a voice, you're a face as well, you know? So, and you're because as a radio personality, we don't get our faces out a lot. Some of us do, but most of us don't. Um, we don't get covers of magazines, and so it's lesser imprinted on people's minds that we're a radio DJ, unless of course you tune into me, right? But as a VJ, it's like MTV is like regional, it's hard to escape from that title.
well, I do think it depends on the DJ as well, because some DJs have
Yeah.
such distinct personalities like yourself that people recognize away from the voice.
Mm,
But to answer your
mm,
question, from my perspective, the pros and cons of always being known as that VJ, I mean, to this day, when I go to places, I mean, people still call me VJ. And then I still have people in Thailand in the local markets still asking me, oh, uh how's Singapore? Are you back yet? So I mean, I've been
oh,
back to Thailand for years now. I think it's been like like a decade. But when I randomly see people, they still have that, that locked in their heads that, I'm that VJ who's still in Singapore. Um, the pros of it, I mean, it shows that like in the amount of time that I've been with that channel MTV, is that it made like a huge mark because I was there like over generations. So I will always be honored to have that platform being with that channel. On the other side of it, I think sometimes it's really hard to define yourself in other areas other than being a VJ, because people have
mm,
that mark on you, like that VJ, whether or not I'm trying to expand in my acting career or other areas of my work. Especially what
mm.
people don't know is that I've been in it, I've been in and out of corporate. I've had
Really?
full-time work. Yeah. I mean, there's been times when I've kind of disappeared. I don't think people even know I've disappeared, but maybe for a year or two. And I'm actually working in corporate, and I don't even have that. People don't even have that peripheral of me of being in full-time
Mhm.
work. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the pros and cons of it for me on a light note. What about you?
Okay, so I'm actually gonna put this laptop, because I've got eggs that have been boiling. I'm so hungry. It's like the first thing I'm eating, so I'm just gonna do this. So I think, right, I feel like we both belong to a very privileged, you know, I mean, we both were doing our VJ and DJ work in a very good generation where there were lesser distractions, so
Mhm.
everyone was kind of focused on our show, right? Like there was no social media to distract from your show on MTV or my radio show on 97 or whatnot. So when people tune into us, they were so focused, and that's why we left such an indelible mark on these people that they still remember us for who we what we did. because we were there during their growing up years, during their prime years, and now they're like adults with spending power. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing. But to be honest, like I really struggled, like because I've been trying to kind of move away from letting a job title define who I am as a person, because I feel like we're more than our job titles. We are people that used to host on TV. We're not a host. You know, we are people that present on radio. We're not a radio presenter. You know what I mean? Because then I could go and be a dancer if I want to, because I love to dance, but I may not be a dancer. Because I want to be like to do many, many things until the day I die. I want to be good at many things. Right now, I want to fly a drone, but I don't want to be a drone pilot. I want to dive in an ocean, but I'm not a free diver or a scuba diver. So I'm working very hard to kind of move away from letting a job title define who I am. So when I do get interviews from like the press and they put ex radio DJ, I would call them and go like, can you freaking take it out? Take it out. Why would you want to define me by something I used to do?
Well, I think that's quite similar to me when it's like, former VJ or for me, it's like they don't even say former VJ. It's like, VJ at. It's like it's still a title.
Oh my God.
But I think it's really important how you define yourself though, because I mean for yourself and for myself, you're Rozz, I'm Ut. And I think through that in time, people who follow us or people who are fans, they know that we're defined by who we are in the present, but we still have these experiences in the past.
You know what I love about our names? It's just single names. It's like Bono, Madonna, Beyonce. We're just Ut and Rozz. Like, how badass is that? Like,
that's pretty badass, because I remember having to fly in and out of Singapore back in the day, and then my full name, it's Asada Panichko.
Thai fish.
Oh, fish
Wait,
sauce.
say that again. Asada Panichko. Asada Panichko.
It's Asada Panichko. Rosalind.
I never knew how to pronounce that. Rosalind Christina Lee is my name. No, I'm using fish sauce in your honor.
Nice. Fish sauce and lemongrass and chilies and all those spices in there. You put that in your egg? Oh yeah. Yum.
Boiled egg. So hungry.
So when I used to like travel into Singapore, the immigration officers will look at my name and they're like, "Oh, you look like VJ Ut. Like you look like the Ut." I'm like, "I am the Ut." And they're like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "I am."
You are the Ut.
I'm like, I am the Ut. This is my full name. I'm like, you don't literally think I have just UTT on my passport, do you? So I wish I did. Oh my
God.
That'd be awesome.
No, UTT sounds like a sexual disease, by the way. Never ever seen. It's like UTI, but UTT is like a different variant. Like, oh my God, I never looked at it that way. When you said it out loud, it's like, oh my God, it sounds like something I could be infected with.
UTT.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. So yeah, no. I'm trying to not fight so much against my radio career before. I mean, we gotta own it. It was a good year. It was a good run, but I also don't want to be defined by it. Yeah.
Well, I'll share something with you. I think like for myself, I've gone through like a lot of sort of like internal confusion with myself, because I grew up as Greg. That's my American name. Greg.
Oh,
yeah. I was VJ Greg for the first 2 months at MTV, by the way. And people were getting confused because at the time, MTV Asia being in the region, they thought there was this VJ Greg looked like this Ut in Thailand. So at the time, my boss was like, we have to go with one name, and Ut is more unique. So they went with Ut. But I grew up as Greg, and Greg is like this other part of me that's a persona that's very introverted, which you can relate to, because we both had this part of who we are, this makeup. So I think for the longest time, having grown in the industry, and then having that really strong moniker as Ut, and having that define me in so many different areas of my career as VJ At or as At or as At Asada in Thailand. And then I had that other side of me. I go back home, my parents call me Greg. I go back to the States and all my friends I grew up calls me Greg. So I kind of revert into this other person because that's my like that's sort of my that's my cushion. That's sort of my, you know, safe zone.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of referring to this and kind of sharing with you because of how you're coming to terms of being Rozz, you know, being Rozz during that DJ Rozz, or being Rozz now, or, you know, it's same for me. I'm in a place where I'm able to accept all those different things about me, being Greg, being At, being VJ At, being At Asada. But I used to kind of compartmentalize to kind of safeguard myself. But in a way, it was good and it was bad. In a way, it was good because then I had my safe zone and I knew where to revert to when I needed to. But why it was sort of not good is because I was kind of confused about myself at times too. And when you get confused about yourself, you can't define who you are sometimes. And I find it's just recently I've been able to be a lot more comfortable and go like, well, I'm everyone. You know, I'm Greg who grew up over in the States. My parents call me Greg. I'm At. I am VJ At. That was part of my chapter in the past. I'm At Asada. So it's taken me some time to kind of just find a place where I just own everything, but it took some time though.
Yeah, I feel like I've always been very quite anchored about who I am. And I just follow like, you know, this gut feel, you know. If it feels wrong, I will stop doing it. But what I really cannot stand is when they like, I think for me, it was not who I am as a person that I had question marks about. It's more like what I do that defines me. So when people try to pigeonhole me, and like, you know, insist that they know me based on what they know that I do or think that I do, then it upsets me. Because what I'm trying to do right now is to break away that people are defined by the work they do. It's just work. It doesn't define you as a person. It's a part of you, but it's not who you are. Like, you know, just recently someone tried to put my job title, because I don't know why they need these job titles. They tried to put Rozz Traveler. Since when did Traveler and traveling become a job title? You know, it's just like so ridiculous. Now I'm at the point right now where I'm like, do I keep fighting or do I let it go sometimes? You know, like it's so hard to change mindsets and social constructs.
I think
And
it's
what
the
they
social
think a person must
constructs.
do.
I think
Right?
yeah, it's a
It's like
social
it has
construct.
to be job. It has to be your name, your age. What's your job?
Yeah.
You know, it's always have to be like this. And with these three pieces of information, I can now know who you are. It's like,
Well,
stop.
okay, I'll tell you what I'm guilty of. Like literally before coming on this vlog with you, I I I quickly skimmed through your through the Wikipedia. So it comes out.
It's not my, I didn't make the Wikipedia page, by the way.
I know, now I know. So what it came up, like the first thing that came out was like Rosalind Lee, actress and host. I'm like, oh, I'm like actress? Like literally, I'm like actress?
Yeah,
And then I'm like,
you know.
oh, and then like I see like 2, 3 like acting jobs. And I'm like, okay, I guess I need to go into this vlog and like and introduce Rozz as actress and host. And I kind of felt weird doing that because I don't know you as an actress. But and it's so funny, you called me out on it, and we're talking about constructs right now. I just had to share that where that came from.
No, it's like,
That's
okay, so
unlike me
I
to
did it.
do that.
Yeah, I know. I'm so glad you did because you see, right, being a part of 3 shows as an actress does not make me an actress because that's not my career. And honestly, like those 3 shows you probably saw with Code of Law, like, you know, and Premonition or whatever. Like I was promised that if I were to be an actress on the show, I get to be an extension of who I am. Like you just, you know, you don't need to act, you just need to be yourself. I'm like, okay, I think that sounds easy enough. So I did that. But it's just similarly, like, when a pretty face, a hot guy or a hot girl like joins radio, I will not call them a radio DJ. Because you need to like put in X number of years, do X like certain jobs, like, for a DJ, like in Singapore, we produce our own shows, we write our own scripts. If you're
Right.
just coming in to just talk, then I say you need to put in like 5 or 6 years before you can be defined as a radio presenter, for instance, yeah.
Well, when we talk about constructs, I think a lot of people, I think we defy what's conventional. I think that's why we're so close and we're such good friends
Yeah.
because we kind of fall in this category where we just think a lot differently from others. But at the same time, what I want to bring up is that a lot of people are defined by the constructs. They want that title. At one point in time, I remember coming back to Thailand and every other person was a VJ and they were, they probably were just on the job for 2 months. To bring it fast forward to nowadays, I think people need to have that definition to define who they are. I mean, you were sharing, it's like you're very in tune with a sense of self. I mean, though I was sharing like all these different like variations of me, but all the different variations of me, I was very true to myself. It's just like kind of
Yes.
having these different personas and being confused about that. But that never took away from being, true to who I am.
Yep.
But I think that's
I think
why,
it's your method. I think it's your method of what you
yeah,
need to do, right?
yes. It's a method of trying to, just safeguard yourself or safeguard my,
Yes. Hmm.
myself in terms of my heart, in terms of my mind. But now I'm in the place where I'm able to just be okay, and
Mm,
embody everything and embody all those different personas. But yeah,
mm,
I also think that's why we're in a landscape where they need to define titles and positions
hmm.
because overall people want to have some sort of title or position and we just kind of don't
Yeah.
fall into that. And I think
Yeah.
where we're coming from is to um is to empower people to not define themselves by that either, to be okay
Hmm.
with who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand the allure of a job title. I do, because sometimes I also catch myself like if I'm in a foreign country and they were like looking at my Instagram, like people I meet will look at my Instagram and go like, how do you get like all these followers? What did you do? Because I will never put my job title or what I used to do on Instagram. It will just see travel photos, right? They'll be like, how did you get to the
Okay, Ross, I think you stalled. As you can see, Ross froze frame towards the end of our conversation. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for joining this conversation with me and Ross. Bye, guys.